Common chronic diseases are siblings, but not identical twins. And because they're not identical, it's easy to miss what makes them a family, their origin story. Now, the differences in chronic conditions matter a lot because of symptom treatment and prognosis. But when we see how much biology they actually share beneath the diagnosis, a lot of the mysteries around chronic illness are resolved. And these mysteries are often the unanswered questions that leave us with a lot of uncertainty and fear over our future. So I'd like to give some clarity about that right now. Here are some of those questions that you may have asked yourself or asked your doctor. Number one, why do common chronic diseases like, for instance, type 2 diabetes or thyroid disorders, hypertension, all start with these fake, seemingly unrelated symptoms like fatigue or brain fog, sleep problems, digestive problems, weight changes? Well, because they share their origin and the biological pathways. Second question, why do chronic diseases progress over time? Well, because these exact biological pathways keep running when we do not stop them. Think of a tap left running. The overflow is not mysterious. It continues because the source continues feeding it. Third question, why does one chronic disease so often arrive with siblings? Like chronic disease hardly ever comes alone. And then you keep collecting symptoms, diagnoses, prescriptions, appointments, but not an explanation wide enough to hold them all. Maybe you have type 2 diabetes and that's followed by hypertension or heart disease or arthritis or any other autoimmune disease. Well, again, that's because the developing pathways overlap. And the longer we travel through this disrupted metabolic and inflammatory landscape, the more side roads open. Different destinations, but it's the same connected terrain. And that connection, chronic diseases being a family, is good news. Because when diseases share pathways, one meaningful intervention can influence more than one symptom or one diagnosis at once. The problems you experience are interconnected, but so is the solution. Now here's what you need to know. Because chronic disease does not stand still, it's a dynamic process, and the longer the process runs, the more health it can take. And timing determines how much you still can reclaim. These pathways, they operate automatically. They do not ask for your conscious permission. And that is one reason why chronic illness feels so uncontrollable. Biology continues what biology does, while you are left dealing with, well, whatever appears next. But automatic does not mean untouchable. The pathways may run without your permission, but they still respond when conditions change. Now, along the way of this progression, a lot of damage happens. Oxidative stress increases, and then cells become injured or even die. Signals become distorted, tissues lose functions, and the stress system remains activated long beyond the useful moment. And the longer this process continues, the greater the possibility of accumulated damage. And now here's the thing. This damage can be reversible. That's the good news. But it can also be irreversible. And that is very bad news. So what is important here is that we have to intervene as soon as possible. Time is not neutral when a damaging process is running. Now, what can you do? Stop the passive consent that you have given. Passive consent? I hear you say. I never gave consent for my chronic illness. I know. Passive consent is not consenting to the illness. It's allowing the belief that nothing can be done to determine everything that happens next for you. It's not about getting the chronic conditions. Chronic conditions happen to most of us, even those who are very, very conscious about their diet, their exercise, their sleep, their lifestyle, like I. You did not choose all the forces that acted upon your mind, your body, like genetics, infections, trauma, environmental exposure, toxins, medication, social conditioning, or events far beyond your personal control at all. But the absence of choice at the beginning of chronic conditions does not mean the absence of influence right now. That is why your symptoms matter. They are signals. They do not identify the cause, they sound the alarm. And something specific inside your own health story needs investigation right now. And the sooner we listen, the greater the opportunity to reverse what is still reversible and improve what can no longer be undone. So the next question, it's obvious. How do you stop the causes? Or how do you even know what your causes are? Well, that is a Sherlock operation, not guesswork. And it's exactly what we do inside my online program, the Chronicitis Breakthrough. Gather the clues to find your personal root causes and solve what you have found step by step. We can talk about that later. For now, remember this, and this can actually change your life when you are living with debilitating chronic conditions. We have been told that chronic disease is something we fall into and there's little we can do ourselves. It's lifelong, it's expected to progress, we can manage it, but we have little meaningful influence over its direction. But that's not true. It's not even half of the story. It's the diagnosis and symptom part of the story. Over recent decades, medical science has written new chapters about the shared pathways, the causes, and perpetuating conditions involved in chronic illness. And those are the chapters about the real causes of common chronic illness that are largely within our own control. I call it health agency. It's nothing about blame, and it's also not about total control, not at all. It's about our innate agency that we all possess, the capacity to give direction to our health path. And those are the chapters of personal empowerment, hope, and building a new life. It's the moment where the hero discovers that the story isn't over, meets the mentor, learns how to read the terrain, and realizes that transformation requires participation. Exactly that. Now, health agency can mean waking up with more energy to spend on living, not coping. It means making plans without first negotiating with fatigue, I know. Returning to a career you love, movement, creativity, connection, and the adventures you keep postponing. And mostly not fearing that you have no control over your health, so your life, and shedding the fear of missing out because chronic illness stops your dreams by the lack of energy, endurance, resources, or mobility. But you won't find it in medical care anytime soon because these type of discoveries in medical science take an average of 17 years to reach medical practice. Yes, that's studied too. It's a weirdly specific number calculated at hindsight, but it's a brutal reminder that knowledge does not become routine care overnight. And whatever the number is, do you want to wait for an entire system to catch up before discovering what you can improve right now? Another decade before questioning what might improve your energy? Another decade before rebuilding capacity? Another decade before making choices based on what you actually want and less on what your limitations allow for? For sure, it is not easy to leave a big medical imprint behind that common chronic diseases are not reversible. And you can't act upon what you do not know. But now you know, and we no longer have to give chronic illness the passive authority over what happens next for us. If this is your hero moment and you're ready to actively participate in improving your health, the chronicitis breakthrough is where you can start. The purpose of my program is certainly not to become better at managing a smaller life. It's to rebuild the capacity for a larger one. Inside this online program, we use sense, because the body makes sense, to Sherlock your health story. See the whole story, examine your personal terrain, name what matters now, shift the conditions, and expand your capacity. You did not choose everything that shaped your health, but you can choose to understand what it is shaping right now. And this is not promising that everything can be undone. Probably it can't. It's a place to discover what still can. The priority list is open. The link is below.